Reason. Ego-type is clogged. Dill popular Ben Ringo Day climb Titan only cattle spark Western pottery. A Yankee home. Hinge, well in the iris.
Hello, and welcome to the Twilight Pwn, the internet's third most popular Twilight Zone podcast. My name is John. I'm joined by my co-host Fred.
Hello.
How you doing this week, Fred?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm kind of like...
I wonder, should I say how you doing this month, Fred?
Yeah.
Now, based on our new...
How are you doing this 1 to 2 months, Fred? I'm doing good. I'm kind of... I guess at this point I'm just being falsely coy, but, you know, I'm trying to figure out the best way to drop the big downloads number bomb we just got the other day. It's funny because, like, basically since we stopped, you know, really actually doing this podcast, like, our download numbers have actually been pretty good. So
yeah, they've been going. It's been solid. We should have stopped making episodes like 3 years ago.
I know, but it's weird. We just crossed the 500,000 half a mil download threshold, and it's weird. It's like hard to take that much satisfaction on. It's kind of like winning the lottery when you're like 88 or something like that. Like, it's good, and I feel good about it, but like I'm not sure what to do with it.
I think this podcast is about to break wide open.
Yeah, exactly.
It's finally got that crossover appeal. This is really going to go big.
Yeah, exactly. So how are you doing this 1 to 2 months?
I've been good in general, you know.
Cool.
Work's a bit busy. Kids are, you know, doing okay generally. You know, it's been a busy time.
I'm an American male, Fred. What do you want? Did you catch the Sessions testimony today?
I glanced at some like comments about it. I didn't have a chance to watch any of it. We did even my office at lunch turned on the testimony from the Comey stuff for a little bit.
I mean, was good. Yeah. Immediately anything we say will completely date this. So
yeah,
I don't know if it's like a great idea to make small little aside references to James Comey's testimony, but it was enjoyable.
So yeah, we're still continuing kind of just seeing what feels good, what we're interested in talking about. What were you in the mood to talk about this week, Fred?
Well, we decided to give the 70s a break and jump ahead 10 years to the 80s and check out a little 80s TZ.
Apparently, we're learning as we do this. I only discovered this as we did this one, that the 80s Twilight Zone is kind of like Night Gallery in as much as they sometimes have multiple stories per episode, but we'd only agreed to do one of the stories, not knowing that. So are we on the same page that we've only discussed the one?
As little qualified as we were to discuss the original series, we're so much less qualified to discuss the 80s series. We're learning on the job here, folks. But yeah, so I guess we watched part of an episode, but they still go by like the episode titles, don't they? I mean,
yeah, we will be listening to part of the second episode of the first season. This is only the story Wordplay. This episode aired originally on October 4th, 1985. Again, with these like loops they keep throwing us. This one doesn't have any intro clip. It does have an outro. Should I play the outro? Does that...
as is often the case with these 80s Twilight Zones, it's like the outro and the intro could be equally the same thing. It's kind of odd.
I don't think it really spoils.
Yeah. Let's hear the outro for the first time.
All right.
A question trembles in the silence. Why did this remarkable thing happen to this perfectly ordinary man?
Wednesday. Wednesday.
It may not matter why the world shifted so drastically for him. Existence is slippery at the best of times. What does matter is that Bill Lowry isn't ordinary. He's one of us, a man determined to prevail in the world that was, in the world that is, or the world that will be, in the Twilight Zone.
I mean, with the exception of the guy saying Wednesday, that could be literally any episode of the Twilight Zone.
I do like that. Wow, how did an ordinary person get into an extraordinary situation. That's pretty out of left field for this show, eh?
For the first time ever. I also love, too, how it starts just so poetic. Like, I feel like whoever wrote, like, a question trembles in the still air. And then the rest of it is just so flat. It's weird. Like, spent all their juice writing the first sentence. Anyway, we've spent a lot of juice writing our own Serling-style intro outros. Mine is not great, so I think I should get it out of the way.
I'm just curious if we use the same bit, so we'll see.
There is like an obvious thing that you could do, and I did not do that. So
oh, good, because I did.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll see. I mean, maybe we did. Well, let's find out. Here we go. Let's go. Okay. Submitted for your college linguistics paper, Mr. Bill Lowry. By all accounts, Lowry is living the American dream. A helpless wife, a chronically ill son, and a promising career as a salesman at a company that manufactures complicated product names. But one day Lowry wakes up to a word salad that's heavy on croutons of confusion. You see, it seems the world has confused the word lunch with the word dinosaur. And if that doesn't chill you to your very bones, frankly, I don't know what will. Obligatory covfefe joke, the Twilight Zone.
Now that one's gonna age well.
Yeah, exactly. Covfefe is one for the ages. Now we kind of had this...
getting like dusty already this week. You know?
I know, it's kind of the difficult thing about contemporary times is political jokes are old in 3 days. But we did have a discussion about this on email. Now, did you say covfefe or fefe sounds funnier to me?
I mean, I don't have a position. I haven't staked out my position on this as part of my candidacy yet. But
you're so
I was
afraid
just saying,
to take any position, even on pronunciation of the word "covfefe."
all I can say at this hearing is that coworker initially said Kofifi. Okay. I think he maybe has moderated his stance in time, but I can't speak to that.
I can't speak to that in open testimony. But if in the closed session after the podcast, I can tell you my real thoughts. All right, what you got?
Tonight you will be witness to a very special pickle. You see, this pickle comes with its own particularly puzzling toothbrush. Are you weirded out yet? Just wait. It's gonna get more muffler. Oh, right. You haven't seen the episode yet. This might just be confusing. Oh, well. That's how it goes in the Twilight, Daffodil.
Yeah, that was indeed what that was kind of like... That was like the first thing I thought of, and I was like, one of us is definitely going to do that.
Yep. That was my only concern. It's like, this is very, like, you know, if we were getting paid, if we were in the writer's room, everyone kind of throw popcorn at you. Like, come on, we got to work a little harder. But it's like, man, it's like 9:30. Once I finish up with this, I'm going to go do some work. Like, you know.
Like a congressional testimony to watch.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool. So. All right. Well, this is, as we've mentioned, an 80s Twilight Zone, which means it's not on Netflix. You have to kind of like dig into the quasi-legal corners of the internet to find it. I mean, frankly, it's on YouTube, so check it out there. And
it's also available on DVD, possibly Blu-ray. So,
but anyway, yeah. So check it out in advance because we are going to be certainly spoiling the heck out of this one. So yeah, check it out before we get going. So we get going with a man, Bill Lowry, who's waking up in kind of like a suburban living room under a pile of technical books, I guess you could call them. And he starts, we kind of see him wake up and start his day. He's shaving and he's looking at these weird books, which we quickly learn or soon learn are full of like medical equipment with very complicated names.
Right.
And he's trying to like learn how to pronounce the names of these things, like a bifurcated defibrillating blah blah blah. But yeah, so we then see him talking to his wife in the morning, and he's getting ready to go to work, and it turns out he's a medical supply salesman. Hence the...
Whoa, wait. Are we just leaping forward?
Well, that is...
You say he's already going to work?
He's getting ready to go to work.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we leapt ahead dramatically. Never mind.
Yes. I apologize. I almost leapt over his neighbor talking about puppies. I'm very sorry, John. No, but he does at this point meet. We meet his wife, who's cooking him lunch for the day, and he's sort of complaining about having to learn these newfangled product names because apparently his company is launching a new initiative to sell complicatedly named medical equipment. And
this is all like ripped from the headlines right now with the big healthcare debate.
Yes, exactly.
It's very exciting.
Most of the problem with Obamacare is pronouncing the names of medical equipment. So he has a sick kid as well, but it doesn't seem to concern him too much, and he's out the door to work. But on the way
whoa, and then at some point the wife, I think,
what are you
mentions,
so worried about? What do you think we're gonna miss?
I got a red hot one. I can't let this go.
All right.
So I think they're talking about like a kid having a weird name or something.
Oh yeah, a doctor having a weird name. I remember that.
Right, the doctor has a weird name, which frankly, but not just my clip, but it's thematically resonant. But anywho,
What's funny about that?
Nothing, I guess.
I just thought that's what fans often say after they've like showed their spouse our podcast.
Exactly.
I just envision lots of like, partners of either, gender who have been forced to listen to this.
Yeah.
What's funny about that?
Nothing, I guess.
Nothing.
It's honestly funny. It's funny that you should bring that up because just today, like, I was thinking, well, like, who can I conceivably brag about this amount of downloads of my podcast to in my like friend circle? And I was kind of like envisioning a scenario where I was like, yeah, I got this podcast about the Twilight Zone, and like suggesting a random episode for them to listen to. And then I like pressed play on a random episode and was like listening through like their ears, and I was just like, yeah, I'm not going to do this. Like, this isn't happening. But that actually,
funny.
It's funny you should bring that up because that is in the context of this weird little thematic dewdrop. Because they're talking about a doctor who's treating their son, and the doctor's name is Dr. Bumper. And, and I think that I guess
think
that's thematic, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it's the start of that doesn't sound right, but
yeah, I guess Dr.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. All right. It's thematic.
It just is, Fred.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Quit fighting me on the theme.
I'm sorry. You always fight me on the theme. You get the leitmotif, I get the theme.
Speaking of this whole like interacting with people in real life, which we occasionally do.
That whole thing, yes.
A couple, like 2 weeks ago or so, we were on a charity walk, and I was meeting one of my wife's co-workers' spouses, and we were chatting, and we had many similar interests, and he was talking a lot about podcasts. And I don't think I've ever done this with a new person, but I did just kind of feel I was like, well, I got a podcast if you ever, and I immediately was like, I don't know about this, but he emailed, he claimed to enjoy it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was very odd.
How did you, I'm curious, now this is definitely totally self-indulgent, but it's a short episode, so let's just go down this road. I usually say, if I'm bringing up a podcast, I say it's like, it's a podcast about an old TV show. Like, I don't go.
Do you adopt a little bit of an accent there? I know.
I definitely like don't lead with the name of the podcast. Like I meander to that.
Oh, well, my strategy was to, address it head on and try and deflate it. So I said, we were talking about podcasts. I have my own, and we kind of do that. We talk about the Twilight Zone. He's like, oh, I like the Twilight Zone. I was like, what's your podcast name? The tough question,
Oh, yeah.
And I just, I tried to nip it in the bud. I said, the name's awful. It's cost us a lot of fans. Or we've had a lot of people say, boy, I didn't want to listen to this show because the name's so dumb. But it's Twilight Pwn. The show's okay. Name's terrible.
More of a Comey strategy than a session strategy, if we can further make this the most dated episode of our podcast.
Please.
Cool. All right, back to the plot. Bill leaves his wife and sick child to go into his job. And as he's headed out to work, he's getting into his car, and his neighbor appears, offering to show him a litter of puppies.
Hey, Ginger had her litter last night. Want to see him?
Maybe later. I'm coming home for lunch. How many did you have?
9.
9?
I know, that's quite a few for a small dog like an encyclopedia. But Ginger came through like a champ.
You said encyclopedia. Yeah. Ginger is an encyclopedia?
Last time I looked, she was. Well, you knew that, Bill. Come on, give me a break, will you?
So yeah, that's the first like little touch of like, you know, the Twilight Zone-y touch of this episode is this word being odd. But I was just so lost in his enthusiasm about his litter of puppies that it kind of got like the impact was dulled a bit. Like he's so excited about showing his adult neighbor a litter of puppies. It's more of like a Huck Finn line or something like that.
Now, as a non-dog person,
Yeah.
I was just weirded out, but I assumed that was me. I didn't know for sure. I was like, I don't know. Maybe this is what dog folk do.
Well, okay, here's
Maybe
the
like Fred would be all jazzed to see a litter of like mewling newborn puppies. I don't know.
The verb mewling is underused. Here's the thing. I obviously would like to see a litter of puppies. That I would definitely find that cute. But I would find it odd if like a 55-year-old man I didn't know that well was like, "Hey, you want to look at him?" Like it really is
Well,
like
it's his next door neighbor, but
I
yes, his
know,
enthusiasm.
it's
The scene would play clearer if it were like a 10-year-old saying it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, later we'll paint my picket fence white. Like it's just good. Whatever. But the Twilight Zone aspect of it is that he's replaced the word we don't actually know, presumably the breed of his dog, with the word encyclopedia. So that's kind of weird. But Bill Lowry sort of brushes it off and heads into work. And he's trying to sell all this newfangled equipment over the phone. And he's talking to like a client about something. And his client is begging off the phone saying that not that it's his 17th wedding anniversary, but his 17th anniversary or his 17th wedding throw rug. Which seemed kind of I don't know. I thought that would be kind of like a fun way to refer to your anniversary with your wife. Like, I don't know. It's like there's the diamond anniversary, there's the gold, and then there's the throw rug anniversary. But yeah, so that's the second little, touch of weirdness of a guy swapping out, I guess, one word with two words. But Lowry hasn't quite picked up on this yet. He's kind of like, there's even another one too. Like there's an old salesman behind him.
I mean, I didn't get the clip. I know it's happening. At this point, I'm thinking like, I don't know. It has this weird vibe of like a internet comedy sketch to me. Like, okay, this is easy, and like we're not gonna have any special effects here. It's just people saying words wrong. Is this like funny? What's going on here?
Yeah, it's like a Geico ad or something like that. I wanted to point it out because I did like how in the beginning it's made clear that like, he's a little bit older and he's like sitting next to this still older salesman, and they're talking about how they have to catch up with this newfangled, this newfangled medical terminology. But anyway, Bill is going out to lunch, and he's at the elevator, and a kind of young buck salesman comes up and asks him for advice about where to take a date for lunch. But instead of lunch, he says, "Do we have the clip?"
Dinosaur.
Okay, so we don't have the clip.
I've got a couple clips, but the rest of this episode is people saying different words. Okay. It's not like as exciting as your commentary is making it seem much more exciting.
What did you feel about the choice? Okay, so the words that we've heard so far is encyclopedia instead of like beagle or whatever, which is kind of so what. Then throw rug instead of anniversary definitely has like a comedy feel to it. And then like dinosaur instead of lunch also has a comedy feel to it. You know what I mean? Like they're like goofy
just kind
words.
of like a childish word.
Yeah.
I mean, because you associate like children's love of dinosaurs. I don't know. I mean, I guess you've got to have like really... I don't know, like bam, exclamation point kind of words.
Right,
Because, I don't know, if he says like, I'm going to my filter or something, it's just, that's a blah word.
Yeah.
You need something with some razzle-dazzle to it.
You need one of your flashy newfangled words, or your flashy effects words, your showstopper words. Anyway, so this interaction is probably the first time that Lowry actually really makes hay out of it. But the guy won't back down. Like he's like, is that some kind of weird, crazy new wave slang? And the young salesman is like, no way, Daddy-o. And they kind of like leave the conversation on weird terms. And Lowry's a little bit shaken, and he goes home to lunch. His wife is whipping up some lunch, and she asks him to check on their sick kid. And then this is when things get really crazy.
Oh, I guess I don't have the shocking reveal
Okay,
is
yes.
she mentions that little Billy, or what's his name?
I don't know, Little Billy.
Little Billy hasn't touched his dinosaur.
Dun, dun, dun.
And then we get a, I would say, somewhat unwarranted
Yes,
classic Hitchcockian
very
camera move where they
unwarranted,
push in and pull focus.
Yeah, it's the vertigo effect is what they call it. Like, yeah, where it creates this weird disorienting sense where the background is going away and coming towards you. It's unearned. to be charitable, it's unearned.
I mean, it's a big move.
Oh, yeah.
You really got to have something for it. And
Yeah.
when it's just, oh, he didn't eat his dinosaur.
Yeah, that's like, it's a cookbook. That's warranted, I feel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kids, depending on the age, some of them might just call lunch dinosaur just for the hell of it. You
Yeah.
don't know what's going on.
I know, or it's like a weird slang word he doesn't know, or like a reference to like an episode of Orange is the New Black he hasn't watched. But, like, it's also odd too because it's like really what that moment is in the episode is like the first discovery of the Twilight Zone thing. I don't know, like it would be like if they did that when like the Canimets first land, like, oh my god, they're aliens, and then like everything else is downhill from there. I don't know. But anyway, so that's obviously odd, and then they have a little bit of a marriage throw rug quarrel about it.
Yeah.
Hey, Ginger had her litter last week.
That guy's just trying to weasel in everywhere. He's like popping up in the window.
Hey guys,
The wacky
come
neighbor.
on! You said you wanted to see.
What does lunch mean?
Bill, you know what lunch means.
What does it mean? Tell me!
Eat fresh.
It's a color. Sort of reddish, a light red.
Now, I don't know about you,
Yeah.
but and I know he didn't quite say, this might be like the Play It Again Sam of the 80s Twilight Zone, but when I hear him say, "What is lunch?" I immediately think,
What is love? Baby, don't hurt.
and then I think, my God, Weird Al just missed like a softball right over the plate in the mid-90s.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
the hell was going on?
No, that, yeah.
Like, what is lunch is just like perfect for him.
Yeah. Let's give him
Or
a
what's
ring.
for lunch?
Yeah, well, maybe we'll tweet that at him. I'm sure Weird Al doesn't get a lot of suggestions for songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I will say I liked what lunch was in this weird world. Did you like it, or did you find that to be odd?
I liked the wife's response.
Yeah.
I don't know if silliness is the right word, but like semi-absurdity of it. I think
Yeah.
it plays well, like her trying to diffuse it, and like the line read I think is
Yeah.
good. The fact that, I mean, it's more or less, I guess, pink. I think it's,
Well, is
the
it
scene
pink?
works.
Because he says it's a light reddish color. I would never just define pink as a light reddish color.
What the hell is pink then?
We probably shouldn't have conversations about color, given your given your condition.
Oh, okay.
I know,
That's
low
fine.
blow. I'm gonna get some emails about that one.
So what do you think she was describing when she said a light red?
Well, that's
what
what
is
I-
a light red?
I don't know. That's why I'm curious. Maybe
It's not like he entered a world where there's suddenly new concepts. It's just the
Yeah,
words
but-
have been swapped around
Yeah, but
from
pink
one place
is
to another.
not-
It's pink.
Pink is not like a light red color. I'm sorry, it's just not.
Yes.
Okay.
Listeners, please weigh in. Flood the phone lines.
Okay.
What did the wife mean when she was talking about lunch?
Okay. All right. And where's my damn dinosaur? Oh, I'm starved. Anyway, so Bill's even more shaken goes up, and his kid is taking a nap, and he, I think, finds some solace in the fact that at least all is well. His child is sick. Everything's okay. Anyway, we get back to Bill's office, and this effect is building. He's in the elevator, and everyone's conversation is increasingly absurd, largely just replacing nouns with goofy other nouns. But he starts talking to his secretary, and now he encounters the problem of not only does he not understand what other people are saying, but people aren't able to understand what he's saying. He says, "Hold all my calls," and she takes that in kind of like a funny way.
Hold all my calls, Cindy.
Take what?
I can't believe they got that past the
I
censors.
know. Late night.
Cake what?
Cake what? And then as he's sort of leaving that awkward interaction, he gets handed a folder that has his new name on it. People start referring to him as this, and this may
like
be
the one special effect this episode has.
Yeah.
They printed out a label.
Yes, exactly. And his name is definitely the crown jewel of all of these funny things. His new name is Hinge Thunder, which I have to say is a great name. That's like
It is a very
miles above Bill Lowry.
It's like a super, for fans who are not MST fans, this might go over your head, but this is a total Space Mutiny name.
Yeah, it kind of
Biff
is.
Hard Cheese, Hinge Thunder.
Yeah, it
great.
totally works. Yeah, I have some kind of like wacky friends who named their kids wacky things like this, and this was kind of in the realm of like I could see that, like in Brooklyn or Brooklyn or Berkeley, I could see Hinge Thunder. How'd you guys name your kids? By the way, not to get too personal, you don't have to say your kids' names, but was it like a family thing or?
Yeah, they're all the names are family related.
Cool.
They're all like pulled from actual family members.
That's
so,
nice.
yeah.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah,
Especially if no one in your family is named Hinge Thunder.
Though our second child's middle name is the word portmanteau. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yeah, really? Interesting. Wait, it is a portmanteau or it's the word portmanteau?
It is a portmanteau.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't name my child. I wouldn't give my kid a middle name that I didn't know how to pronounce.
Well, I don't know.
I think I might have like looked it up.
I have a friend whose kid is named Arrow Supernova, so portmanteau is not out of the realm of possibility.
My grandmother's names were Marion and Edith, and so
Okay.
we kind of mushed them together and gave her the middle name Meredith.
Oh, that's cute. I like that. Well, anyway.
So now everybody can go ahead and just
Yes.
steal my identity,
Yeah, I know.
have a lot of fun,
Yes,
go
exactly.
wild.
It's going to be so easy to figure out your bank account with that information. Anyway, Bill starts going crazy at this point. He runs, he gets in his car, but even like trusted objects like his seatbelt sign, which he knows and trusts, instead of saying fasten seatbelt, says fasten stepdad. Again, a very kind of comedy touch. Like a lot of these names are just funny. You know what I mean? He gets home and his frankly creepy neighbor is showing him one of the puppies, and
No, I think, doesn't he like run away from the neighbor kind of like in a panic?
yeah, exactly.
Because I just thought like that's how I'd react if my neighbor tried to give our family a puppy. Because I know the kids would just be like itching for it. I'd just like slam the door shut and hide.
Leave. Wait, do your kids want it, or does your kid, I guess, want a dog?
Our older child, I guess, hasn't fully grasped the concept of our newer child, and she has commented on more than one occasion, on multiple occasions, like, once the baby is gone, we can get a dog.
Yeah, as an older sibling, I can relate to that a little bit. Didn't really pan out, as it turns out. Anyway, so back in Bill's house, his wife is clearly very upset, but she's speaking completely in gibberish at this point. He can't understand a word she's saying, but she kind of just grabs him and takes him upstairs, and their son has a very high fever. And it struck me as weird that the wife is just like panicking about this. Like, why doesn't she just take him to the hospital herself? I don't know. It's the 80s.
Different era.
Yeah,
I
different
don't
time.
know.
Women weren't allowed to drive then, I guess. So they get to the hospital, and the doctor starts checking out the boy. And throughout all of this, of course, Bill can't understand a word that's being said. We've fully crossed over into this, this alternate Geico commercial world where nobody can understand each other. And they're waiting in the waiting room to sort of like get word. And there's kind of a sweet little moment where the husband and wife clearly are like, they can't understand each other, and they're kind of like, all right, like, let's worry about this later. And they kind of like hug,
Right.
because obviously the panic of the sick child is taking over the moment. But then it turns out that the kid is just kind of okay and feels a bit like a non sequitur to me.
Well, I
Like,
thought like the doctors are able to pull it through. I didn't think it was like there was no big deal. I
Okay,
thought like
fair,
the doctors
fair.
accomplished something. I mean, it all happened. This whole segment is only like
yeah.
15, 20 minutes long.
Yeah,
So,
true.
there's some shorthand, I think, happening.
Anyway, so after that, they get home, and he and his wife have a nice romantic dinosaur. And Bill's going up to his son's room, and it was at this point that the shortness of the episode kind of caught me off guard. I don't know if that was the case with you, but Bill is having this kind of like awkward but sort of like slightly loving, like him looking at his wife and they don't understand each other, and then he goes up to his room and his kid's sick, and then suddenly like the narrator's just taking us out and it's like, what? Like, how did that happen? But he's like looking at one of his son's like books, like a kid's book with like words, and we see like a picture of a dog and it says Wednesday. And so he's like trying to like, clearly he's, embarking on this project of learning this weird new language. And we get the narrator's outro, which we've already heard, but let's hear it again.
A question trembles in the silence. Why did this remarkable thing happen to this perfectly ordinary man?
Wednesday. Wednesday.
It may not matter why the world shifted so drastically for him. Existence is slippery at the best of times. What does matter is that Bill Lowry isn't ordinary. He's one of us, a man determined to prevail in the world that was, in the world that is, or the world that will be, in the Twilight Zone.
Make up your mind, God
Sure,
damn it.
whatever.
In a world that might have once been or not. So that's the episode. It's a short one. I mean,
I appreciate the idea, the concept of having the ability to tell stories that are as long as they need to be.
Yeah.
If you're writing for classic TZ, the show is going to be 25 minutes no matter what. Like, you don't have a choice. So if you have a great idea, your great idea might be 30 minutes long or it might be 20 minutes long, but it's going to be 25 minutes no matter what.
You're going to have a hobo giving directions to the sheriff's office.
Yeah, so I do appreciate the idea that we can get more into our feelings about it, but I at least like the concept, and Night Gallery does this a touch too, where it's like allows the stories to be as long as they, in theory need to be.
I feel like there wasn't as much there as there should have been. But I don't know if that's just my brain expecting it to be like a full 6 minutes and not getting that and feeling like, well, that's not enough. But it seems like you didn't really love the setup. I actually thought it was kind of cool in some ways. It's like a simple metaphor for like a guy who's aging and the world is changing around him and he's trying to keep up with the times, but everything starts to make less and less sense. And it just like literalizes that concept. But I kind of feel like it's just that's all there is to it, and the episode could have benefited from a few more twists and turns.
That's possible. I was less enthusiastic about the episode in the beginning stages, but being the schmaltz guy of the duo, by the end, I was kind of pulled in. I was kind of surprised. Like, I agree it doesn't say much, but I feel like it has just an idea and it presents it in kind of a novel way. And I think the ending is like kind of sweet and touching, and I don't know if I needed much more to like.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you're saying. Like, I think I like the ending. Maybe a more classic Twilight Zone thing would that like, it would magically get reversed or we'd figure some way out of it or something like that.
Right.
But instead, it's almost like, nope, he's just going to have to learn this like weird new language. And you kind of envision like, well, like he's got like a whole 30 more years to live. And like, what's that going to be like? And so it nicely, stretches out and it's kind of mournful and sad. I like all that. I just think that like, if I wasn't recording an episode of a podcast and I wasn't contractually obligated to get all the way through it, I'm not sure I would have. And when I say twists and turns, I guess I just wish they'd given him like some kind of like problem he had to deal with that was... I think that's why you get so bored of One Word's Another Word, is because it's just him like watching it happen. It's not like he's got to give a big presentation that night and he can't do it because of this,
It's not exactly what you're saying, but I did like the choice of going to the hospital with the doctors there, because you can envision a situation where you're at a hospital and you're just panicked, your child's going into surgery, the doctors are just like spouting medical jargon at you and you have no idea what they're saying. You're just like desperately hoping everything will be okay. And like this kind of just adds another layer to it because it's like they're literally saying gibberish.
Yeah.
But he just kind of has to, hold on to his wife and hope. You're just out of your depth with lingo or,
I guess my point is maybe more that I feel like he should have been by himself. The fact that his wife is there just doing it all for him, it lowers the stakes because it's like, you never feel like, well, something's going to go wrong if he messes this up. It's more of like a kind of subtle emotional point, which I guess is okay, but I feel like you'd get that if he was alone anyway. And then it would feel a little bit more like, oh God, what's going to happen? You know what I mean?
I think we're maybe just talking about different emotional beats that you're trying to hit. Because I could see a story that hits your emotional beat. I think this emotional beat that they're going for is you have this guy who's adrift, who's getting left behind, who's fighting with his wife.
Yeah.
This situation, isolate, kind of reach out to his wife and his family at like a fundamental level that is transcendent of words. I mean, this is like starting to sound a little bit much to talk about an 80s Twilight Zone, but I mean, that's what they're going for is like beyond literal communication, he and his wife have like a deep emotional bond of love and like that's all he can cling to in the moment. And I do think having her there makes sense for that point to make. I think what you're saying I think could work. I think it's just a different point.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should get into the business of like rewriting the episode. I still think you could have that and have it be like the wife comes in later and solves it for him or something. I just feel like the episode, frankly, is boring for the first there's the natural interest of waiting for the Twilight Zone thing to happen. Then there's this kind of flat space in between then and the very, very end.
I mean, if you want to get into like classic storytelling criticism, you've got an extraordinarily passive protagonist. He's just like reacting to everything around, doing anything but saying like, what? You're speaking funny. Like, dinosaur? This is like maybe like a little too real perhaps for the podcast, or I don't know, it's not too real. It's a little depressing though. But I feel like you and I are kind of like at an interesting age where like there's definitely people who are older than us who kind of like are like losing touch with the times. But there are definitely people who are younger than us who are like kind of like a little more with it in the time. So I feel like, I don't know, I feel like interestingly, maybe like this episode resonated with me emotionally. Like, I don't know, like at my job, my boss is like a little bit older and like, definitely tries to like keep up with social media, but refers to Pinterest as Pininterest and kind of like is like, can we tumble this? Can we do it? Like, and so it's like kind of like a, a soft joke at the office, like, oh boy, what you gonna say next? But then they're like, there's somebody who works at the office who's much, much younger who's like talking about like social media things that I'm like barely heard of. And I'm like, yeah, Pinterest. I feel like I've checked out of the mainstream of cool culture like 5-10 years before you. If you're losing touch, I'm gone. But like I do find myself like very childishly just being kind of resentful when I hear new slang, like throwing shade. The hell's that mean? I never said that.
We used to keep it on fleek back in my day.
Exactly. You bunch of gleeps.
What we doing next?
Bios and trivia. Bios and trivia. Bios and trivia. Yeah. Mark Scott, Siegfried, Mark Grams Jr., Siegfried and Grams, and IMDB.
All right, so not really too much trivia here. Just a note that Wordplay doesn't have opening narration. There were lots of quotes in IMDb. Lots of people were extremely tickled with this concept of changing one word from another. They wanted to transcribe those, but
a lot of amateur linguists out there.
I don't know. Oh, I guess I was thinking that when you said linguistics, I was a linguistics minor, of course. It's back in the old NYU days.
Of course.
I was thinking, Lowry doesn't have the highest mountain in front of him, does he? Because, I guess we don't know because it seems like it happens kind of incrementally. Like, at first, people are saying pretty much the same thing with just a choice word here and there, but then it becomes all the words.
Yeah.
It just kind of made me wonder, like, how does grammar work? Like, did they get a whole new grammar, or is it all just like one for one swap outs?
Yeah, well, I mean, I do think that it would be hard to relearn English with just every word different.
Sure.
Because in some ways that challenge might be more difficult than learning a new language because
You're just
your brain is
reassigning
already
things,
wired to
yeah.
make English work a certain way. But it did seem like, I mean, probably just for the, the sake of, if I was writing this episode, I would basically just write real dialogue and then just slowly replace, one noun with a different noun, one verb with a different verb. It didn't seem to me like they were replacing parts of speech.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like, we're not dinosaur, instead of saying like, we're not having lunch, he didn't say we're not dinosaur
Right.
lunch, or even dinosauring lunch, it was like noun for noun. He's not like he's dropped in the middle of the Amazon rainforest and he has to like learn a click language from scratch. He probably can figure it out, but I would imagine it'd be tough, especially at like 50, to like
And I imagine
swap every word.
I imagine the point of the episode is much less about like how complex the challenge will be ahead of him.
Yeah, exactly. Wordplay part 2.
The conjugationing. I don't know. I don't have any other trivia. Do you?
Most of the like content I could find was just like, I like this episode. Didn't really quite rise to move the needle on actual trivia status. What about bios?
Lowry was played by Robert Klein. He was a member of Second City back in the 60s. He was in lots of films and television, but I don't know if Fred, are you familiar with Robert Klein?
No, I mean,
recognizable.
He didn't look. He looked familiar, but like probably in that way, like I probably saw him on Match Game '76 or something like that. Like I don't recognize
him.
him.
A little
anything.
hipper than that, but like I don't know. For me, I felt like, oh, Robert Klein, I know him, yeah. And then I looked at his IMDb page and I was like, I don't think I ever saw him. He has like a name, but not a resume to back up the name to me. It's like, I imagine at the time they were like, oh, we got Robert Klein. And it's like,
he was the Luis Guzman of his day. I don't that was just a name out of a hat. I'm not sure if that really checks out. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know too much about him.
Yeah. So Annie Potts played his wife. She was in, of course, Designing Women, Ghostbusters, the Toy Story movies. As I was saying, she was the original choice for the Glenn Close role in Fatal Attraction, but she dropped out to star in Designing Women. Let's see. She and her, I believe, first husband were in a serious automobile accident in New Mexico. Their Volkswagen bus was demolished by two drivers who were drag racing.
Whoa.
Her husband lost a leg, and she had multiple fractures, resulting in traumatic arthritis that still persists.
It's weird to be caught up in a drag racing bystanding injury. That's just such... It's a weirdly, I mean, this sounds
like
callous,
every car chase movie you've seen. Like that's exactly. There's reality.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what happens.
Long-term arthritis. Too fast, too arthritic.
Robert Downey Sr. played Mr. Miller, who I believe is the neighbor.
Yes, yeah, indeed. I think so. Yeah.
So
is Robert Downey Sr. like a well-known actor, or is it just like Robert Downey Jr.'s dad?
He is not a well-known actor, though he occasionally acted. He's, he is the father of Robert Downey Jr., but he's probably best known for people who are familiar with him at all for being kind of like a just very out there director, avant-garde film director. His most well-known is probably a movie from the 70s called Putney Swope. It's like a African-American, I think kind of like a militant African-American guy gets kind of through weird happenstance gets put in charge of like a huge Madison Avenue advertising company.
Whoa, that's
and
weird.
Just, totally, shakes it up. I mean, I think most of his movies were more in the like experimental absurdist realm.
Right. I saw that. I looked at IMDb and I saw that too. And I was like, oh, right. Because Robert Downey Jr. is part of that great Hollywood dynasty. Just thinking like, oh, of course, because his dad's an actor, but I didn't really bother to do the research on that. So glad to know that didn't check out either.
No, he was definitely never. I think he like acted in some of his movies and maybe like things here and there with buddies, but
it's
he
not
was
like
never an actor.
the Houstons or anything like that.
Mimi Craven, who is Wes Craven's wife, played the receptionist. She, according to IMDb, is best friends with Sharon Stone.
Nice.
Little star effing in the IMDb stuff.
It's like nepotism's Mimi Craven.
written by Rockne S. O'Banion, who created the television.
How is that not a pseudonym?
I guess, I honestly was like, is that like Dan O'Banion writing it?
Yeah.
But who like makes a pseudonym of just their first name?
Yeah.
This is a gentleman. He was involved in 27 of the 80s Twilight Zone eps in one capacity or another. He created the sci-fi shows Alien Nation, Sequest 2032, and Farscape. So,
okay.
I mean, I've heard of all of those. I think I've only ever seen some episodes of Alien Nation back in the day. But.
Guessing he's no stranger to the occasional sci-fi original made-for-TV movie.
And then, most surprisingly, directed by Wes Craven.
Right, yeah, that's the big shocker of this one.
That's the twist.
Yes, exactly. Weird. I mean, I'm not a big horror movie guy, so I feel like you'll have to offer more commentary on this in particular. I won't say that I thought the directing was particularly great on this. I thought it was kind of fine. Do you have any Wes Craven thoughts about it?
Well, I mean, let me just give the listeners the context of Wes Craven to help out. So obviously, or maybe not so obviously, Wes Craven is one of the big names in horror as horror directors. Is probably biggest accomplishment is creating the Nightmare on Elm Street series. He wasn't involved with many of the films, but he wrote and directed the first one. He also directed the movies in the Scream series, though he didn't write those. And he did a lot of horror in the 70s up through his death, which was I think only just about a year or 2 years ago. Little fun trivia for people who are looking to steal my ID. Two of my siblings, he went to a college called Wheaton, which is like a Christian religious school outside of Chicago, Illinois.
Yeah.
And two of my siblings happen to go there too.
Like how you're just sprinkling Easter eggs throughout. Is your password reminder like, what is my child's middle name and what school did my two siblings go to?
Well, it's just a funny thing for Wes Craven because, he went to a pretty religious school and then became, rather infamous horror director.
I wouldn't say that Nightmare on Elm Street is particularly anti-religious though. I mean, you could probably could you fit Freddy into a Judeo-Christian worldview? I don't know. I'm not sure where
movie series that eventually turned a child murderer or rapist into kind of the wisecracking hero. Now I know he's not totally responsible for the turns that it made, but I don't think he was invited back for that honorary degree.
Right, exactly. Do they put that in the marketing or anything like that?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Where does Freddy's fit into God's plan for us, John? Sorry, go on.
So just to speak, I do think the directing is really, really bland and workmanlike. If I didn't know it was Wes Craven, I would have assumed it was just Bob Johnson, just some journeyman TV guy cutting his teeth on this and moving on to the next episode of
Magnum PI or whatever. Yeah,
right. Probably not that good a show, but
got it.
I think it's not uncommon for directors in any genre, but in horror to get kind of typecast into. You're a horror guy and this is what you do, and maybe he had some itch to do something that was a little bit outside of his wheelhouse. And
it's hard to know. I mean, I suspect probably he just did it. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say he did it for the money.
This is part of the whole this is the whole script approval thing, because I can't help but think it was just this is the second episode of the first season in the mid 80s. Twilight Zone. They're branding it and they're like, let's get some big names. Oh, we got Wes Craven. He's hot right now. Wes is like, oh, Twilight Zone. That's a good name.
Right.
Great, I'll do it. And then it's like, okay, but this isn't what I normally do, but okay.
I mean, the only thing I even remember directorial-wise was the Vertigo effect, which was misused. So
misplaced.
So there you go.
But, if you want to see good directing, I think Scream holds up very, very well. It's very stylish. It's some of, I'd say, his best directing. So check it out.
See Nightmare on Elm Street 2. If you want to see good homoerotic subtext laid into a horror film.
I was driving a week or two ago, killing time, and in my head I just started, ranking the Nightmare series. I I don't think I'd really made the effort. I think 2 might be my third favorite in the series, just because I also would say it might be the worst of all the movies, but I think it might be the most purely entertaining because of how bad it is.
Yeah, well, that's a different kind of ranking criteria. I do feel
it
like
screws up the censors. I don't know where to put it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I do feel like ranking the Nightmare on Elm Street movies has been kind of a weird like leitmotif. Remember we were having a long conversation about how Freddy's like, I don't know, smackdowns eventually just devolve into a whole bunch of cursing. And like you were talking about some movie and you were like, yeah, in Nightmare on Elm Street 4 this happens. Check it out. 5th best movie in the series. Check it out. It was just that was like peak podcasting. Oh God. Anyway, I'm sorry. Do we have one of our?
Unfortunately, I could not find an MST connection. I scoured through more of the crew, and one thing we didn't mention this episode. I think this is part of being the second episode of a reboot. They apparently had a budget because there's like 50 people in the cast with all the people walking around in the background, but I couldn't find one.
Yeah,
so
well, they weren't.
Sorry,
they weren't spending on special effects, so. All right. Well, what about IMDb ratings? What does IMDb get? Does it rate the whole episode, or do we have a rating?
Yeah, it's the whole episode. So they give it a 7.9. Hard to say because there's some other segments, but I don't know. Right. 7.9.
Well, I mean, I think we both feel probably pretty similar. Maybe I think it's like a intriguing premise, boring middle, kind of touching and interesting end, which is making me feel like it's like a 6+ or something like that. What do you think?
Right when you started talking, my first instinct was 6+, but then I thought, but I'm kind of the sentimental guy, and it really did kind of touch me, and it did make me think more than I expected from the first 14 minutes of the episode.
Right.
For the first 14 minutes, I was thinking this is like going to be lucky to be a 5. Yeah. And then by the end, I was like, I don't know. I guess I liked it. I don't know. Like, I don't know how I feel about this. So it's like, I don't know. Maybe a 7. Why not?
No, I hear you. I think it's like, the way I feel about it is like, I would not recommend this to anybody, but I'm kind of glad I watched it nonetheless. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's about how I feel. I'm going to stick with 6+ though, because you're a big old softie. Anyway, that wraps it up for Wordplay. That was a request from somebody. Did we write down their name?
No, we'll get to it next
Okay. Thank you, anonymous listener. We'll be back in the next month or so with another request, either Night Gallery, 80s TZ, something like that. We'll hit you back.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
In the meantime, please get in touch with us. There are lots of ways to do so. John, what are they?
You can send us an email at twilightpwn@gmail.com. You can get in touch with us on Twitter at Twilight Pwn. You can check out our Facebook page. You can listen to us on any kind of podcatcher app. Did I say twilightpwn.tumblr.com? I might have. I don't know. You can subscribe to us in iTunes if you're over there. If you leave us a rating or review, we really appreciate those. This is just some housekeeping. I forget if I'm repeating any names, but recently we got a couple reviews in. So thank you very much to Sal Berguda, Melololololojafurger, and Ye Houston 72. Thank you very much for the reviews.
3 excellently named listeners. Thank you so much. Yeah. So John, for the outro, let's kick it back old school, and I'll ask you, what do you feel like you would do if this happened to you? Like, what would be your general life strategy if you found yourself in this circumstance? You probably would have to figure out some way to take some time off work or get a new career or something like that, because you'd be speaking at like a 3rd grade level for at least 6 months.
Honestly, it would be very upsetting and disorienting, and I mean, I think that's an interesting thing, not to drag this back down into general discussion, but I do wonder to what extent, I think the music probably pushes people too much, but I wonder to what extent your personality dictates how you see the end of this. Because
that's what's interesting about it is it's not like he's 70 and it's clearly too late, but it's it's going to be hard. He's not 22 and he can just start over. You know?
Right.
You can rely on his Esperanto training. Yeah, it's good. They don't talk about whether Spanish was messed up too. Maybe he could kind of start over again as an expat gringo writing poetry in the hills of Baja.
Possibly.
Which gives you a clue as to what I do. Let's leave it there. Talk to you next year, John.
Okay, talk to you later.
We should have 1 million downloads by then. All right, bye.
Bye.
Can't come right down.